British businesses shouldn't be afraid to look overseas for growth, with demand for products up a third in the last 5 years, a study suggests. International shoppers are prepared to pay up to 22% more for British goods, a Barclays global survey shows, with items made here seemingly undertaking a renaissance. Emerging markets offer growing opportunities according to the bank's data. More than 60% of consumers in China, India, and UAE perceive British products to be of a superior quality and are willing to pay the highest premiums. This jumps to three-quarters when looking at 25 to 34-year-olds in China. Furthermore, items with a union flag has a big pull on younger overseas buyers. Nearly half of 18 to 34-year-olds said the inclusion of a British flag on a product encourages them to purchase it, compared to a quarter of over 55s. The perception of quality drives international consumers' willingness to pay extra for British goods. The study of more than 8,000 people shows a good sign ahead of Brexit next year. In terms of premiums, overseas buyers are willing to part with. Food tops the list, with international consumers willing to pay 22% more for food labeled as British-made. Cars, clothes and alcohol are other items that international consumers most consider worth paying a price premium for if they are labeled as being British-made. Buyers Baghdadi, global head of trade and working capital at Barclays, said, "Brand Britain continues to have widespread appeal abroad, demonstrating the continued scope for UK businesses to trade successfully overseas." The prize is substantial, and exporters should be looking to highlight the provenance of British products to take best advantage. Export trade to non-EU countries increased 1.5% in the 3 months to December, and the research found that the biggest opportunities for British businesses to grow exports is in emerging, high-growth markets. While the EU and the US remain the biggest trading partners for the UK, there are significant opportunities for British businesses to grow exports to less traditional markets. The research found that perceptions have a direct impact on the amount consumers are prepared to pay. This makes emerging markets a prime target for exporters. 64% of Indian consumers, 57% of Chinese, and 48% in both South Africa and UAE said they would pay more for goods made in the UK. because they believe the quality to be higher. This is in comparison to our European neighbors, who are more restrained in their praise of British goods. Just 29% of respondents in France would pay more for goods made in the UK because they perceive the quality as higher. Meanwhile, an overall 12% believe that British goods are the best in the world. White Farms, based in Somerset, has been in business for more than 150 years and knows all about the impact of having the Union flag on their packaging overseas. He said, "One thing the French taught us is the importance of celebrating our identity, not just our Britishness, but our regional identity too, just as someone from Normandy would do." Being from Somerset is a big part of our cultural identity, with a wholesome, natural image that goes with that. Britishness has become increasingly fashionable over the last 5 years. If you look at the Asian markets, the Union flag is an icon in its own right. There's also been a rise in celebrity chefs talking about the virtues of British food and taking that to audiences around the world, and we can boast global icons such as Jaguar Land Rover and Aston Martin, which are inherently British. That's especially important when you go to places like China and India, where the British have cultural ties that go back centuries. He says the fact it is a family business also helps boost the product's image, and says that it often welcomes visitors from overseas who want to see the region. He adds, despite it being a longer route to market, trading overseas, especially for independent businesses, it can help expand margins and create a loyal customer base. We see big opportunities ahead despite the uncertainty. The global population is growing, and most of that is outside the EU. The challenge for the government is to do trade deals that give us access to that, and to the growth markets, where there are more and more affluent people. If we're to ride the wave of this desire for British-made products and have a role in global trade in the future, our politicians need to become more ambassadorial in their attitudes, whether that's to Europe or the US. There are pockets of opportunity in South America, Asia, and Africa, and we want to be there from the very start, so we need a cohesive approach from businesses and government.